Blue Jackets' streak with the Penguins continues. They have not won in Pittsburgh since 2015. They have not beat the Penguins since 2019. And it was the same again last night, but with a little bit of a twist. We're going to talk about that. And Corson Ceulemans signing his entry-level contract on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly, lots of that one today, about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day, every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube. We are marching closer and closer to our next milestone, so if you want to hit subscribe over there, please feel free to do so. It helps you out. It helps me out. You get notified when new episodes go live, and I get to enjoy watching that subscriber count go up and up and up. So everybody wins. I also want to let you know before we get started that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more and visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So let's talk about last night's game, because it was just so perfectly Blue Jackets, and specifically Blue Jackets against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So like I said at the top, the Blue Jackets have not beaten the Pittsburgh Penguins since 2019. They have not won in Pittsburgh since 2015. It's been a rough stretch there. It's been just a time. And then the Blue Jackets decided to open this game by scoring 4 goals. And then they decided to stop scoring goals and instead let the Penguins score goals. 5 unanswered goals, including the game winner in overtime on the power play. It felt like 2 different games. It was just a whole mess of everything. It was... I don't even know what to say. Like, when it was 4-0, I was like, oh, maybe they have a chance. But even then, I still was like, there is so much time left for them to screw this game up, and screw it up they did. I want to give some shout outs to that fourth line specifically. Emil Bemstrom, Laine, Pederson, and Foudy all scored goals. Emil Bemstrom on the power play. I want to give a shout out to Kent Johnson, who hit his 18th assist with a 2-assist night, 1 on the power play, 1 on Patrik Laine's goal. The depth players, not that Kent Johnson is a depth player, I think he's pretty solidly top 6 at this point, but the depth players showed up early. Elvis Merzlikins showed up in the first period, and then I don't know what happened. Honestly, he played that first period and then was ill. So Michael Hutchinson started the second period. Elvis wasn't on the bench. And then he came back to the bench looking kind of a little bit ropey, a little bit kind of flat, stayed on the bench for the rest of the game. So I don't know what was going on there, but we went from Elvis playing, and he only made 7 saves in the first period, but I feel like all 7 of those saves were, 8 out of 10s at least. Michael Hutchinson was fine. Not great. Made 35 of 40 saves in the 42 and a half minutes that he played. But just a story of two. It was a game of 2 halves, I feel like. The first half was all Blue Jackets, right up until 10:23 in the second period, when Jason Zucker opened the scoring for the Penguins, and then the third period was just kind of a nightmare. My enemy, Jake Gensel, scored. I feel like that's the first goal he scored against the Blue Jackets this season, but I also feel like this is the first game he's played against the Blue Jackets this season, so that's not all that impressive. That being said, there were some things to like about this game. Not a lot, but there were. Great to see the power play. go. Great to see the young players get goals, especially Liam Foudy, who now that he scored his first NHL goal, it took him 60 something games. He seems to have figured out how scoring in the NHL works, which is really great to see. Like I said, great to see the power play. The penalty kill was at 50%. Unfortunately, the game winner was scored on the power play, but for the most part, I thought the penalty kill was fine. The first one was pretty solid, and then the second one, I feel like there was like 45 seconds left. So it is what it is. Sucks, but this was good in the long run for the tank, I think. Which I am this is the fun thing about kind of getting to this point in the season is if we win, that's exciting. If we lose, then that's also exciting because that's great for the tank. In a minute, we're going to talk a little bit more about some ice time, some more special teams things, things like that. But first, I've got to tell you about FanDuel because it's America's #1 sports book, and it's basically halfway through the NBA season. It's the perfect time to download FanDuel because no customers are going to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That means that if you place your first bet and it doesn't win, you get bonus bet back up to $1,000. So you can put $1,000 on your first bet. And if it doesn't win, then it's all gravy because you get that money back to bet again. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, super easy to use. You can buy everything from money line to point scorers to who's going to score the first goal to how many saves a goalie is going to make. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That is fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and also the Locked On Podcast Network. So I want to touch on ice time because it's looking a little bit more like it should. Gaudreau, Laine still leading the way, but great to see Corson Ceulemans getting almost 16 minutes of ice time. Marchenko, his ice time's dropped a little bit, but great to see him getting some power play time. He's basically solidified himself as that top line winger, which is really, really awesome to see. I have very few complaints with the top six at the minute. I think that Gaudreau, Jenna, Marchenko line is great. I'm really, really enjoying Kent Johnson playing with Patrik Laine. We know I'm not the biggest fan of Jack Roslovic as a top six center, but he seems to be holding his own. He actually had 70% of face-off wins last night, which is great for him because sometimes he is the one that is dragging the average down, but he was the only one, apart from Kirill Marchenko, I assume took one and won one. He was the only one above 50% in faceoffs. So shout out to Jack Roslovic for having not a terrible game. In terms of defensemen, it's the same old story. It's Andrew Peeke and Eric Branson are getting the most time, which is what it is at this point. Tim Berni, it only got 12 minutes. Nick Blankenberg got 21:47, which considering he blocked a shot, and then I believe blocked another shot with his face the next time. Seemed to be fine. Didn't miss a shift. Great to see Adam Boquist ice time continue to climb again. Gavin Bayreuther is inoffensive to me at this point. He's doing fine. It's the big guys that are, have been a worry all season, and now with Werenski out, with Gavrikov gone, Andrew Peeke and Eric Branson are going to be getting a lot of ice time for the in the foreseeable future. Which, I mean, take what you will from that. But if it was up to me, Blankenberg or Boquist would be that top pairing from now until the end of the season. But I'm not the coach of the Blue Jackets, so it is what it is. Like I said, it was really great to see the power play go. I believe they've scored power play goals in 4 straight games now, which is awesome. I don't think they have crawled quite out of the basement in terms of where they stand in the league. I believe they were 31st last time I checked, which is fine, but not exceptional. I don't have the stats to hand, but like I said, always fun to score a power play goal because it's like a really nice surprise because I just assume that nothing's going to happen. And so when something does happen, fun fact, I actually missed the goal scoring itself because they went on the power play and I was like, oh, they're not going to score here. I will go and mix around what is happening in the kitchen. I was microwaving some food or something. You don't need to know the details about this, but um, and then I came back and was like, "Oh, they scored a goal. That'll teach me to put faith in not the Blue Jackets scoring." They are 27th on the power play at the minute, which is very exciting. Will that last? Probably not. But hey, I will take being 27th, considering it took them like a solid 6 weeks to even score a single power play goal. So there's that. Like I said, penalty kill, it continues to be fine. They're 20th in the league. The worry for me right now, and they are playing St. Louis next, I believe. They are playing, yes, the Blues uh, on the. No, that can't be their next game. Yeah, I guess their next game isn't until Saturday now, which feels weird. Um, but that game is going to be interesting, I think. I'm not super holding my hopes out. It'd be nice to win, but again, it would also be nice to get more points towards the tank. And then I believe they are off on their West Coast swings. So it could be there's a lot of points up for grabs in the next few games. Teams that are kind of out of par with the Blue Jackets in the standings, and teams that you would expect to beat the Blue Jackets and therefore help them in Bedard. So we'll see how it goes the next couple of weeks. And I would like them to win against the Sharks because I'm going to that game. I am out in California for the next 3 weeks, and I would like the Blue Jackets to win because I haven't seen the Blue Jackets win in person since like 2019. I also haven't seen the Blue Jackets in person since 2019, so like that's a big part of it. But they did win the last game that I saw them play, so you love to see that. I've forgotten what the point, the original point I was making was, but special teams fine. The worry is goaltending for me. Um, Elvis leaving that game after the first period and then like sitting on the bench, probably a good side means that he's not like hocking up his guts in the back all game. But I don't know. At first I thought he was injured. They said ill, which is much preferable to an injury. But hopefully, the next few days he has a chance to rest, to recover. He'll be back for that game on the 11th against the Blues. Honestly, part of it is probably that he has a 1-year-old now, or the kid must be almost 2 actually. And kids are tiny walking germ factories, so I go ahead and assume that that's what's up. He didn't seem like he was in great health on the bench. He looked a little bit ropey, a little bit pale. Spent most of the game sipping at a cup of, I assume, water or some kind of electrolyte drink, but I just don't know that this team can cope with any more serious injuries or illnesses. So fingers crossed, Elvis is back for the game on the 11th. If not, I guess we're riding Michael Hutchinson all the way to April, folks. But speaking of the future, the Blue Jackets have a brand new shiny ELC contract that got signed yesterday. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, I've got to tell you about Built Bar because now that I'm in the States, I can actually get Built Bar super easily. And I just got a delivery the other day. I got these grasshopper cookie puffs and I got lemon dipped cheesecake puffs, which are effing incredible. If you, like me, are kind of a gremlin person that sometimes gets to 8 p.m. and realizes, hey, I should eat a thing, Built Bar is for you. If you are a healthy person that, goes on hikes and goes to the gym, and then Built Bar is for you as well. They come in a bunch of incredible flavors. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, only 130 calories and 17 grams of protein. You can get them at Walmart, you can get them at Sam's Club, or you can go to built.com and get them there as well. And you can pick whichever flavors you want. They always have new flavors coming out. Like I feel like I saw maple donut flavor the other day, which sounds amazing. Maybe that'll be what I try next. But I'm really enjoying. This is my recommendation to you guys. I am really enjoying these lemon cheesecake built puffs. The puffs are kind of marshmallowy. The regular built bars are a little bit tougher, but still really, really good. So go to Walmart, go to Sam's Club, go to built.com and thank me later. So let's talk about the newest Blue Jacket, and that is Corson Ceulemans, who was the third of the first round picks that the Blue Jackets drafted in 2021. He was 25th overall. He's been playing for the last couple of years at the University of Wisconsin and doing pretty well. This season, 33 games, 23 points, which for a defenseman, I'm pretty happy with. And so I guess the organization is as well. The expectation is that he's going to join the Blue Jackets next season. I believe he signed the entry level contract to start 23-24. So I don't believe he can join the Blue Jackets for the rest of this season. What I imagine will happen is he will finish his college season in Wisconsin and then go to join the Monsters, who are making a big playoff push at the minute. We will check in with the Monsters probably tomorrow. We'll do a little bit of a check in because they had a big win last night over the Grand Rapids Griffins. They are, I believe, only 2 points out of playoffs right now, which is very exciting. Yep, they are 2 points behind the Laval Rocket for playoff contention. So again, that's very exciting. But Corson Ceulemans, big right-handed defenseman, could be a really great kind of playoff push piece for the Monsters. But I'm more excited about what he can do with the Blue Jackets. There's been a lot of talk this season about how the Blue Jackets need defensemen. Does he make the team next year? I'm not sure. I wouldn't be upset if he spent another kind of year or so in the AHL, or spent a year in the AHL, I guess. Maybe occasional call-ups as and when. I assume the Blue Jackets will be just as cursed with injury luck next year as they were this year, but he's really, really effective offensively. He's pretty good defensively. He's great at boxing them out, controlling them on the boards. He's got really tight gap control. He's got really quick threat identification. So, like, he sees who the biggest problem is and is like, right, well, I'm just going to hang out directly next to you, which is something that is kind of tough to do, especially if your opponent is bigger and faster than you. I mean, he's 6'2", 198 pounds. So he's not small, but he's far from the biggest defenseman. I don't necessarily think defensemen need to be big, but that's why that gap control, that threat identification is really important. You see how effective Nick Blankenburg is at it, for example. 5'8" Nick Blankenburg sticking to Sidney Crosby like glue last night, getting matched up with McDavid a couple of weeks ago, facing off against Owen Power, who is, I believe, 6'5", in the game against the Sabres, so it's fun to see. And I'm super excited for Corson Ceulemans to make the jump to pros. I'm super excited to see him with the Monsters, and the Monsters, who have lost a lot of their defensemen to the Blue Jackets this kind of season, will get some reinforcements of their own, hopefully make the Calder Cup playoffs. And, you only need to make the playoffs and you have a chance of winning. So we will be, now that the Blue Jackets are not making the playoffs. I think we've known that since about November. But the Monsters are really making a playoff push, so we're going to be looking at the Monsters a lot more in the coming weeks, especially as they get closer and closer to that playoff push and seeing how they go. They will be facing off against the Utica Comets as it stands right now. If they make the playoffs, and in that 5th seed, they will play Utica. The other teams, probably the Americans and the Crunch. The Toronto Marlies at the top of the division and are not, I don't think they've officially clinched it yet, but they are 15 points ahead of the next team below them, so they will get that first round bye. But the Monsters, they've beaten the Comets a couple of times this season. I think that could be a pretty favorable matchup, so I'm excited to see how they do. But mostly, I'm excited for Corson Ceulemans to make his AHL pro debut and join a very quietly strong defensive prospect core for the Blue Jackets. You know, adding him to a core that includes guys like David Jiricek is really, really exciting. So hopefully we'll see him sooner rather than later. That's kind of all I've got for today. Tomorrow, like I said, we'll do a bit of a dive into what the Monsters are doing. Excuse me, we'll do a bit of a dive into what the Monsters are doing, their playoff push, who's succeeding, who's been kind of an unsung hero, maybe. So we'll talk about that in tomorrow's episode. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find this podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube. If you haven't hit subscribe over there, please feel free to do so. It helps me out. It helps you out. Everybody wins. And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.